Welcome. Today's Business Spotlight focuses on Mark Coan from Money Sherpa. Mark, you're the founder of Money Sherpa. Tell us all about it. What is it? And how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, basically we get people their mortgage with half the hassle, we hope, and we do that by sorting everything online. So we arrange the best bank, the best surveyor, the best solicitor for the end customer, and then we work with them to make sure it all goes smoothly. So when I went to sort my own mortgage in late 2020, I realized that it was just too hard, and it just was, everything just took too long. So yeah, that's why I founded Money Sherpa.
Okay, so you're a one-stop shop effectively for people, so they can just sit on their computer. You obviously have access to many different sources of money providers then?
Yeah, so we work with all the lenders. I mean, obviously, we put the company together in late 2020, so we were in the teeth of the pandemic.
Yes.
Quite a terrible time, but a time where there were opportunities opening up for remote working for the first time, and where it forced some of the traditional finance companies to go fully online, and we really took advantage of that. So we are based in Dundalk, but we operate nationally via Zoom or an equivalent video service, giving advice, and then all of the documentations and all of our partners, the solicitors we work with, the surveyors we work with, they are all wholly 100% online as well. So it's a very different mortgage journey than perhaps the one that people are used to.
So when they go onto your website, they will enter in presumably a questionnaire initially of what they're looking for, and then you will go back to them with recommended advice. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. We even, Tom, kind of took it one step back from that. So the actual first thing we did when we founded Money Sherpa was to find out what people were actually searching for online. And we answered the top 1,200 Google questions that people type into Google.
Yeah.
We wrote 120 articles. That was a very busy time in our first kind of couple of years. And we're still writing more because obviously the market moves on. So we're now ranked the #1 kind of finance site on Google with 20,000 monthly visitors.
Wow.
And we rank, it's been really, given we founded the business only 2.5 years ago, it's been really something. And we now rank in the top 3 for over 150 of the most common mortgage queries. So people come to us right at the start when they're really just starting to think about, how do I buy a home, or should I switch my mortgage? Should I leave my tracker? Because there was really a gap in terms of the publicly available information about, who's the best lender, what's the best strategy. So we started right at the beginning.
So that's interesting. So it means that you're actually talking to somebody, albeit online. Yes, or is it over phone calls, or is it mainly Zoom meetings you have, or team?
Yeah, so we do now about 200 meetings a month. So typically what happens, people read those articles and they decide they want to know more, and they, as you said, they book an appointment with us.
Yeah.
And they book that online. It's about a 20-minute call with an advisor over the phone, where the advisor really gets to know the customer, understand what their needs are, and kind of move to the next stage. So we that seems to be working quite well. We're 99% of the people who've worked with us have given us a 5-star review on Google. So we work really hard to make sure the advice that we give is really good quality, but also that it's 100% unbiased. So you mentioned earlier on, Tom, the lenders we work with. We work with all the lenders. So, and in the mortgage business, everybody gets 1% commission of a mortgage. So there's no kind of temptation to push people one way or the other. It's quite good. You can be completely impartial. So we find actually about 50% of the people who give us 5-star reviews decide not to work with us, because we tell them, actually, you're better off not switching your mortgage. Because we think one of the things, the gaps in the market that I saw is people really aren't sure who to trust. So what we're trying to do here is build a brand
Yeah.
where people know that our kind of foundation stone is we'll always give you good advice. And if sometimes that means we make a commercial return on it, that's great. But maybe we might have a conversation in the short term that doesn't. But that's not a problem. We're building our brand, and we might get a Google review out of you anyway,
Yeah.
and that's valuable to us.
So if I would say what would differentiate you from the rest of your competitors, it sounds to me that one of the things that you have addressed is that you are answering the majority of questions that people are most commonly trying to find out on your website, which other people aren't providing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really start with the transaction. We start with the customer problem. So whilst a lot of mortgage brokers are trying to come, like, when are you ready to get a mortgage? We kind of have flipped the whole frame to start from my own journey as a customer and said, because I'm not a mortgage broker by tradition, I came to this from other industries. So then what does the customer actually need? And what we found was kind of a couple of things. First, they needed to understand what actually the basics were, which is why we wrote the 120 articles.
Yeah.
The second thing is they needed to trust. So they needed to be confident that the advice that they were getting was independent. So the central bank actually did a survey on kind of people's opinions on the financial advice they were getting. And over 40% of people who answered that survey said they didn't trust the advice because they thought the advisor was getting a kickback. And that's often the case. So we thought it was really important to address that need. And then the third thing was the fact that people were left then to do by their brokers or by their banks to do the other things around a mortgage. So it's not just working with the lender. You have to get a solicitor, you have to get an insurer, sometimes you have to get a surveyor. Often this is the only time, or one to 3 times maximum probably you're going to buy a home. So you don't know a surveyor, you don't know a solicitor who specializes in conveyancing.
Yeah.
So we said, well, let's solve that for the customer as well. And that's the other kind of element is, as you say, Tom, we start early and deal with the questions, but also then we handhold people right through the process.
I think that sounds like a fantastic service where you can say, we look after this, 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 and this for you. And the element of trust, that's effectively what you're selling. That's what your customers are looking for. At the end of the day, you're providing a service, but they want that trust level. So
aren't we all?
Yeah, listen, absolutely.
Down to that.
We're all exactly. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that. It sounds to me like that you do. So tell me, if you had to start your business from square one again tomorrow, what would you do differently?
Wow. No, it's a great question, Tom. I mean, we've learned so much, and we made so many mistakes. When you sum it up, you're like, oh, it's all been straight up hockey stick growth, but behind the curtain, that's obviously it's never the case in my experience. So one thing that we did do originally is we started in the switcher market and we focused on switchers, and that was fantastic in the first year of growth. We absolutely flew because the tracker rates were rising. A lot of people wanted to know what they wanted to do with their tracker, and a lot of people decided to fix their tracker. But as rates got higher and higher, then we kind of peaked. And at that point, the switching market really kind of flipped. I mean, what I probably didn't realize at the time was how cyclical the switcher market was. It's kind of a market that when rates are going in one direction, it explodes. And then when they're not, it just disappears. And that's not good for a sustainable business. So we were lucky enough that we had started to build our house hunters division, our house buying mortgage division, in parallel towards the end of kind of the switcher market being so big. I mean, the switcher market will come back, but what I would have done in retrospect to make sure that we kind of had a little bit more sustainability and diversification is I probably would have built out both arms of the company at the same time so that we had
Interesting.
a more. I think what saved us, though, to be honest, is something that I'm really passionate about, Tom, which is we really grew the whole thing organically. So one of my founding principles with Money Sherpa, in my previous gig, I used to build startups or acquire startups for independent news and media. So I was responsible for new revenue lines
Okay.
for them. And so I have a lot of experience in the startup space. What our strategy was, as a corporate in that space, was to place many small bets because you knew 80% of startups are going to go south for some reason,
Yeah.
like the switcher market disappearing under their feet. So to kind of, when it came to doing my own startup, I didn't want to be one of the 80% that went south. So one of the things that we did do is we made sure when we grew, it was organic and it was sustainable. We didn't take on a lot of debt. So Money Sherpa is a bootstrapped company. We've kind of grown our own profits. I mean, we probably could have grown a lot faster, but I think we're a lot more robust and a lot sustainable because we've taken the approach that we've taken.
It's so good to hear about the business itself. So, what has your personal biggest learning been since you became the business owner and founder and running the business of Money Sherpa? What's been the biggest personal learning you've got?
Yeah, I have to say, how hard it is to found a business
Yeah.
has staggered me.
How honest that is.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to have a kind of, oh my God, making me sound very old, almost 30-year career in corporate land. And
Yeah.
basically, I was chief commercial officer at Virgin, at Permanent TSB,
Okay.
and INM. And I thought when I did this, especially considering I'd run startups for the last couple of years, for corporate land, that this would be a bit of a walk in the park, to be honest. And I thought
Yeah.
I had it all worked out, and it's so tough to be doing everything yourself, and kind of trying to get something that works from scratch. And a very interesting experience, actually. We were lucky enough to be nominated for Small Business of the Year this year with this SFA
Well done.
Business Awards, one
Yeah.
of the 50 finalists. And what was great about that program, that IBEC and the Small Firms Association run, is you get to meet all the other 50 finalists. You go away for a weekend, and there's some training and there's some drinks, and you get to talk to other owners and people who run small businesses, and yeah, and you get to sit there over a pint and discuss how bloody hard
Yeah.
it is. And that, I think, is my biggest takeaway, Tom, is it's a tough slog. It's incredibly rewarding, I
Yeah.
have to say, building something yourself.
But you learn a lot from being with other business owners as well, which is another great key. So you
Yeah, I
mentioned,
think, yeah.
yeah, you mentioned being at the SFA, being a finalist in that. That's an accolade of its own sort. Getting into that.
Yeah, no, we were delighted
Yeah.
to be considered, and it was a little bit of a surprise. We were nominated by somebody that we'd worked with,
Yeah.
and it was a fantastic surprise. There's so many amazing businesses that across Ireland,
Mm.
and yeah, to be one of the top 50 this year was really something.
And you mentioned there that yeah, your employees, you can't do everything yourself. So presumably you're not doing all these 200 calls, 200 meetings yourself every month.
I'm not doing any, so I'm doing
Good.
very little. Yeah, so we've got a great team. There's 11 of us in total right now, and one of the other advantages of founding the company in the middle of COVID was that we could really rethink how we worked. So I'm in the office right now, and I'm the only person because everybody else is working remotely. And one of the things that we did is we allowed people to set their own hours. So essentially, the agents that work with us, we measure what they do. We don't measure how long it takes for them to do it. So we've been able, therefore, by working remotely and being able to offer flexible hours, to have some amazing people who perhaps wouldn't be able to be part in the standard labor market. We've got a lot of parents of young kids who need to do the drops and the pickups in the middle of the day, and they can just schedule their working day on our systems because we built them like that from scratch. So although it's tough being a startup, there are certain things that you can do that allow you to get some great employees. And it's a collective. It's the team that have got us to very much to where we are today, and my job really is just to support them.
Correct and right. I mean, I can't argue with that. That's what we would profess ourselves, but that is fantastic. So obviously you're building a culture there that works for the business, that people want to be part of you and are able to retain your staff better by having a culture which works for them as well. So Mark, this is a tremendous interview so far. One last question I want to ask you. What advice would you give to an up-and-coming entrepreneur? So the question would be, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things I'd say to my 18-year-old self that I don't know whether I'd share on this in public. But certainly, from a career perspective, and I've got a few teenagers. I've got 4 teenagers, so this isn't as theoretical as it might well be at home. I would say that starting a business is an option. I never considered that from day one. The barriers to entry have come down so much now with kind of turnkey plug and play systems. I was amazed in terms of setting up a website, the technical launch of the business, how much you can build through SaaS, and how little capital is actually required to launch a business. So I think the first thing I'd say is there are more opportunities out there to follow your passion than you might think. You might think you need to get an accountancy job in a KPMG. I think the world is much wider, and I think equip yourself with the skills that are necessary to be an entrepreneur, because then you can take control of your own career as an option. Now, you might not choose to follow that path, but I think there is still a lag between the traditional education system and where the world of work is right now. And there's so much more opportunity out there to actually do something yourself and follow your passion. And it definitely should be on the smorgasbord of choices that our young people have.
Excellent advice for our budding entrepreneurs. Mark Coan from Money Sherpa. To get in contact with you, moneysherpa.com.ie, I beg your pardon, moneysherpa.ie. And presumably, whether you want to make a switch, whether you're looking for a new mortgage, whether you're a second-time buyer, third-time buyer, whatever, it's a one-stop shop for everyone to go and get the best advice out there. Correct?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds fantastic. Mark, thank you so much for participating in this today. I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you, Tom.